All right, welcome everybody, and I'm going to get some feedback here.
You always do.
I know I do. All right, try number 2. Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of your favorite true crime and criminal culture talk show, the True Crime Talk Show, brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast. My name is Brendan.
And I'm Malia. Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome everybody. And we have James kicking it off with a super sticker. You are incredible. We appreciate you. Love the support. Love that you're here. And we're going to get into it tonight. So I figure we could follow up just a little bit about some of the stuff that we talked about last night, just based off some of the responses of the comments. We really try and be reactive to the community and our viewership and thought rioters out there. So I figure we can touch on that. We're going to touch on the Rex Heuermann cellular evidence, and we are going to get into a couple of the new documents and what we feel like they mean, how honestly they just kind of suck. But, we'll get into that with you, and let's get into it here. So you can find us on every major podcast platform out there, all of them all at once, simultaneously. What's that called again? Omnipresent. We are omnipresent on all the podcast platforms, all the social media platforms. All you got to do is search Thought Riot Podcast spelled all the way out, and you will pop right up on there. And we want you to come hang out with us. We want you to leave some comments. We want to hear from you. Any feedback is good feedback. So yeah, come hang out with us. We also have a Discord, and if you don't know what Discord is, it is a chat to continue the conversation, and it is free, and it will always be free. And I am posting the link now because you have to have an invite. You can't get into it without an invite. So Discord itself is free, but in order to get into the room, you got to have an invite to it. And we have Meg coming through. All right, with 10 gifted Thought Riot Podcast memberships. That is incredible. And welcome to the 10 new members. We have been slacking on our members videos for the last couple weeks. It is because we are in the process of getting a new studio and things have been crazy. So just bear with us, you guys, and we will be right back at it with the members only videos. So yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome. I think I covered everything. Is there anything we missed? Are we going to briefly talk about anything Sebastian Rogers? Have you been really the one that has been digging into that case and paying attention to it? Is there any new information other than the fact that unfortunately we have another day that has passed, another 24 hours has passed, and this teenage boy is still out there?
Yeah. As far as I know, there isn't really anything new. I know that photo that we have been talking about where people think that it's possibly Sebastian in North Carolina, Nick Barris, which is a reporter with News Channel 5 local to the Nashville, Tennessee area, he ran it through some kind of AI thing, and it said that it was most likely AI generated. But the thing is I saw a bunch of different people running pictures through that AI generator or whatever the heck it is, and it says literally every picture is AI generated. Every picture. So it's not a good one. It doesn't tell you anything, honestly.
I do feel like we squashed that picture. I got to be honest. And I do kind of feel like that picture is out there to try and get the FBI involved, which makes me a little concerned because, again, I've said from the very beginning, I think, especially when it comes to our judicial system, our law enforcement, like honesty is just the way to go with any situation, you guys. So I hope that that wasn't the approach, even though it was a good faith approach. Yeah. And here's the thing too. I'll touch on that real quick. Remember, you guys, we talked on this very, 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 very briefly, but new cameras that have been installed onto cell phones in the last I don't know, I think 4 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, have AI built into the camera system. So when you take a picture, it's enhancing the picture to give you a better quality. Now you can turn all those settings off, but you got to go out of your way to do it. So I wonder if that software that you're talking about is picking up on that, because we know it was taken with the phone.
Yeah.
We don't know that, actually. That's one thing that I did want to talk about is
the metadata.
The metadata. I didn't realize when we were talking about this photo yesterday of let me pull that picture up just so
Do you want me to
people,
send it to you?
I have it. Just so
Oh,
people
okay.
that maybe didn't watch yesterday can connect with what we're talking about here. Okay,
I
so
sent you the metadata picture, or you don't want that one?
no, I don't want that one. That's okay. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so this is the picture we're talking about. Do you want to give a brief rundown on the picture real quick? Where you knew more about it than I did. So it came from somebody that was just invested into the case. And
well, I don't know if I would say that. So
I mean, it's somebody that knew about the case, right? And they were wondering or believed that this could be Sebastian Rogers here. We did a deep dive into it yesterday, everybody, and we felt like it was not authentic based on a couple different factors. So if you didn't watch that, go back and watch yesterday's video.
Well, I don't know if we felt it was not authentic. I don't know. I can't say
I
that.
don't feel like it is.
Okay, Brendan doesn't feel like it's authentic. I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't say that it's not authentic. I can't say that. So it was posted by somebody in the mysterious disappearance of Sebastian Rogers Facebook group. And they said one of their friends local to Hendersonville saw hit this kid in North Carolina over the weekend. And they posted this 2 days ago now. It's been 2 days since this was posted. And that they took a picture and called the TBI tip line and thought he looked a lot like Sebastian.
Yeah.
She asked, like, does anyone recognize the woman in the pink shirt?
Sure.
They said that he didn't seem like he was in distress or anything. And it seemed like he knew who he was with, and that this is at a paid visitor center, like a paid entrance to a visitor center off the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, which is near some mountain.
Just a brief rundown, I think, is good enough since we covered it yesterday. And
she claims it's not photoshopped.
Right.
Grandfather Mountain.
So this is my big concern here with it, you guys, that we didn't talk about yesterday. So after the show, I was looking into this photo a little bit more, and I realized that when this photo was posted, they posted the metadata, okay? And I don't know about you, but when someone posts something with the assumption that everyone already is going to not believe it, that causes doubt, okay? They're posting a photo, and I feel like if you post a photo in good faith, it would be like, oh, shoot, no way. Like, I can't believe this could be this person. Well, when the photo was posted, they immediately posted the metadata. And I think you didn't realize how easy it was to change metadata. And
well, I sure know now, because I went in my phone, you guys, and I figured out you can edit everything pretty much about your metadata.
Yes, in an iPhone, they turned on those settings a couple years ago where you can adjust any of the metadata, meaning all you got to do is open the picture, go into the metadata, and change anything you want in there. The date, the time, any of the details about the camera, you can literally change anything. So sharing that metadata from a phone is pointless. And it makes me just wonder right away, like, why did they even share that information? Just assuming there's already going to be doubt. I don't know, you guys. It's
kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird for sure. That's where your head goes, rather than like, hey, officers, community, check this out, you know? I don't know. It just made me feel weird about it. But anyways.
So I will say that it's interesting that we've heard nothing. It's been 2 days. Nothing has been said. And I've seen one of the PIs in the case. Well, actually, there's been a couple PIs saying they do think this is legitimate. One PI on Twitter saying the fact that there's been nobody discounting it yet, like law enforcement hasn't come out. The parents haven't come out.
Anything, though.
Nobody has come out and said this isn't him. It's not true, except for Christopher Proudfoot. He said that immediately, that it wasn't Sebastian. But Katie said they're looking into it, and Seth said they're looking into it, and nothing is confirmed or anything. A lot of people that are closely involved in this believe that it could be legitimate.
Yeah, I don't. I'm staking my claim on I do not think it is legitimate, because there's too many social factors to the setup of this picture that make me doubt it.
Social factors?
Yeah, like the way that relationships work and how people do things and reactions of people. It's just really weird that you would think that you could possibly see a missing child in this area, but take literally the worst photo ever, a photo in a way that not a single person in the photo can be determined to be anybody. You can't tell who the lady is. You can't tell who the boy is. You can't tell who the man behind him is. Like, literally the worst photo ever. Now, what are the odds that you have 3 people in a picture and all 3 of those people are standing in a way that they cannot be identified who they are using AI facial recognition software? I don't know. Statistically, it just doesn't feel very authentic to me. And then after we went into all those details yesterday with the highlights around the bodies, with the multiple filters in the presentation of the picture, now the metadata, to me, it just feels, it just doesn't seem like that's how somebody would share and or present a picture in a missing person's case.
I see what you're saying. I definitely do. I think that sharing the metadata is a little weird. And that's the initial share, like the first time they ever shared it.
I know.
They shared the metadata with it. And it's wouldn't,
with the expectation that somebody is already going to doubt you. Whereas, like, if that person is in front of you, you have the opportunity to take a good enough picture to make sure they're not going to doubt you. So why go the extra mile to include metadata that can be played with and or adjusted, but not go the extra mile to make sure you get a facial picture? Like, what?
Right. Yeah. I definitely see what you're saying. So I do want to say there is another vigil that's being, there's posters being put up everywhere for May 19th at 6 p.m. It looks like it's at Long Hollow Church, which is 3031 Long Hollow Pike. I'm assuming this is in Hendersonville, but yeah, that's being advertised. I will repost it on our Twitter and share. I can share it in a community post too. But it's going to be 70 days now before long. I can't remember exactly. We're 60-ish, like I want to say 65 days in, but I don't know 100% sure, but we're getting close to the 70-day mark. And I have a lot of hope that picture is real, but I'm not betting on it.
Yeah,
I'm not betting on it.
Every day that we talk about this, I just want to send out positive thoughts, you guys.
Me too.
We've talked about like the science that is coming out right now around how thoughts are matter. So there's definitely a science behind hoping for the best and thinking the best in any situation. So regardless of whatever drama and stuff is going on with the parents and in this situation, the whole point of even talking about this topic at all is making sure that this boy gets found. Okay, regardless of the condition he's in, we just need to find this child. That's the whole point in society, right? Making sure that kids are protected and things like this don't happen. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for us to come together. We're failing in some areas when it comes to this case, but doing really good in other areas. So, I'm just going to keep sending positive thoughts and hope that Sebastian gets found any day now.
Agree.
All right. Let's get into it. Now, yesterday, we talked about Ray, okay? And I want to put some major emphasis on what we talked about. We talked about Ray as the expert. We dug into why judges in the past did not think that his science was reliable. We talked about why that judge might not have been a reliable opinion on this matter. We talked about the perception that could come from Cy Ray being an expert on this case and having a YouTube channel and some of the struggles that I believe can come with that. Now, there was some topics that were brought up yesterday around some of what I felt were like adult themed topics on his channel. I want to be very clear here because there were a lot of comments of people that I think were bad faith comments saying, what are you suggesting that that channel is doing? I need to be clear. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm sharing my opinion of what I believe that channel's editing style could be perceived as from the jury or other people in society. Okay. I said many times, and I want to be very clear with that everything about that channel seems incredible. However, I believe it is going to create some issues being so publicly visible and a defense expert. So
I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick. Okay.
Yep. And so, you know, whatever you guys gather from that and whatever the chat gathered from that, just understand that, you know, the channel's great, but I have some concerns being a content creator and an expert, regardless of whether it's a defense expert or whether it is an expert for the prosecution, you guys. Now let's get into the documents here. There were a couple documents that I think are going to bring up some really important questions. Yes. You know what's interesting though, about the topic that I just clarified about is, I don't know if you guys I don't know if you guys realize this, but we never connected a word. We never connected any types of lifestyle to that content at all. But everybody that was leaving what I would consider bad faith comments were drawing the connections. So every bad faith comment that somebody left is literally proving my concern that I brought up yesterday, because we didn't say anything that could draw a connection to any of those lifestyle type things. But it's interesting that everyone else was making the connection. There's an endless amount of lifestyles out there. Okay. I'll wait for Malia to get back here and we'll get into this notice. I also did a poll here because we're going to be talking about quite a bit of cellular based evidence. Okay, I just put it out like 30 minutes ago, and it is Idaho 4, Gilgo 4. Do you believe this cellular science is junk science? Junk in the trunk science. But yeah. Now, gosh, I'll wait till Malia comes back in here. From everything I can tell that has to do with Cy Ray's software, you guys, I would be curious to see on the back end who created that software. I'm still digging and trying to find out who is the manufacturer of this software, and I wish I could understand how they configure their location. It sounds like because they're using drone technology, which unless something has changed in the FBI cast, they're not using drone technology. So it's interesting that Cy-Ray's software is specifically using drone technology. I wonder if that creates some additional benefits to the situation or not, or if it creates some issues with the situation. Like we were talking about yesterday with the software, is a drone just being taken up in the air and then they're taking a single source measurement from the base of the tower to the crime scene and then creating a circle of coverage? I'm not real sure. But I'm curious to find out. Now, we know that his software was at least reliable, at least had interested parties in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been bought out. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been used. My big concern with it is whether this software can be public enough to share the science behind how it works. And like, what I mean by that is, if this defense expert comes into court, okay, and he says, you know, let me give you my map and layout of where my test placed the locations of the phone or potential locations of the phone, and there's some kind of graph or location of said phone. Are we going to be able to see the science of how he got to those points? Because if not, I don't see it being a benefit because of how many eyes are on this. This is not a standard case. This is a case that you have an endless amount of experts looking at from all different areas. You have legal experts. You have experts in all different evidentiary-based sciences. We have personally talked with DNA experts that have concerns with the DNA evidence in this case. One of the main reasons we started doubting the evidence in this case was due to the cellular evidence and the fact that what they were saying in the PCA isn't possible. We know it's not possible. But it's interesting to understand if they use the same type of technology to write the PCA, you know? Because what's interesting here is the more we've covered this topic about Cy-Ray, the more I've went back and chewed on the topic of the cellular data. And what I mean by that is there's a set day that we don't know for sure yet, but believe that Bryan Kohberger became the suspect number one, okay? From that day to the submission of the PCA, was there enough time there for them to gather the cellular data that they needed to write the PCA in good faith? I have big question marks about that. So it makes me wonder, okay, well, how did they get this data so fast against Bryan Kohberger? Were they using software similar to what we're going to see brought to the table by Cy-Ray? If so, then in my opinion, looking at the possibility of him coming up as a defense expert, it's going to be, you know, a checkmate on that data, because all it's going to do is prove that, you know, sure, the law enforcement used this data that is very equally similar to what Cy-Ray's data or software is, and it could end up supporting some of that data, right? Because and law enforcement is not saying he's at the crime scene during that time. But they're saying that he stalked that location multiple times before that. Well, how do they know that? What data did they use? What software did they use to get that. Because what they're going to do is with the defense, unless they have multiple pieces that they're going to be able to prove that he was somewhere else, if they only have one piece of data that they're bringing to the table from Cy-Ray, that it's going to look like a one-off scenario, a one-off situation. And that's my biggest concern here, is because you don't want one-offs when you're trying to share reliable data that you want the jury to depend on. All right, let's get a poll here real quick. Hang on. I'm curious where everyone lands on this right now. Do you believe Cy-Ray will bring more network-based evidence than a simple CDR, call data, location? Oh, wow. Right at 100. I can't add more. Okay. Do you believe Cy-Ray will bring more network-based evidence than a simple CDR location? That's the only way it's going to matter, you guys. Really. That is the only way it's going to matter. Otherwise, it's going to be two experts against each other throwing blows, you know, and that doesn't help anybody, in my opinion. And I do think that based on, you know, some of the past interactions that we've had with some of the Thought Rioters, there are people connected to the case that watch this show. And I think that it's beneficial to try to guess what kind of moves, evidence, and experts are going to be brought forward before it happens, you know? Because look, we aren't legal experts here. So if we're thinking about these ideas, then they already have a plan to execute these ideas. I was just continuing the conversation on Cy-Ray's information, and if we believe that. So let me ask you this. One of the things that I was thinking about between yesterday and today is we know that once Bryan Kohberger became suspect number one, to the point that the PCA was written, right, is only a certain amount of time.
Okay.
So how do you believe they got the cellular evidence that they believe they could trust in? And do you believe they used a software program similar to what we're going to see Cy-Ray bring to the table?
That's exactly what I think is going to happen.
And
that's what I was trying to imply yesterday.
And okay, so if that's the case, then what do you think Cy-Ray could bring to the table that is going to make him as an expert stand out and separate himself from the PCA's science?
I think he's going to be using geo-blended data.
Okay.
Because in the PCA, which again, this could have changed. So I'm not saying I'm right or anything. But in the PCA, there's no mention of background application data. There's no mention of GPS. There's only mention of cell towers. Cy-Ray's software, and who knows, he could not even be using his software in this case. He could be not using that.
I don't know. I think he has to.
Why?
Because that is his resume.
That's not all of what he's done.
I mean, think of how they're going to present him if they're not presenting him as a nation-leading software that has a really successful company that's being used across the nation, and then he's not even going to use that data to support his argument. If I was the prosecution, I would ask, why aren't you using your world-renowned software? You know what I mean? I think he has to. I think he has to. Yeah. Otherwise, it would look bad. Now, I think we're looking at a couple things here. Is the prosecution going to be able to bring up any of these concerns, right? And I think the only option they have is to bring an expert that can question these ideas in front of the people that matter, you know? And I think that's important. I think it's really important. And I've said from the beginning that the presentation and the perception is the most important thing in any case. I truly believe that. I think a great presentation will walk all over sound science any day, unfortunately. I really do.
I'm just wondering how Cyray's testimony is going to hold up to cast, especially, you know, that Bill Thompson is going to have to bring up the other cases where Cyray was discredited. He's going to have to bring those up.
But it looks like, based off what you brought up yesterday, it sounds like that judge could be discredited. Now, you said cases. Are there more?
Yes, there's more cases where his science has been thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start with that one. I wanted to start with that one, and we'll dig more into it. I still have more I need to read through. Like, there's a few of them, and you have to go get the documents. They're not readily available like that one was. But yes, there are more cases where his science has been thrown out. Just like in that document we were looking at yesterday, which I totally forgot to post to Discord. I will do that tonight. But it said on there that this technology, that ZX tracks software, has been largely admonished by the scientific community, and that is true. That is true.
Okay.
But again, this is 2014 when it first came out.
Okay.
To like 2022, pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's a change after that too.
5G.
Yeah.
When 5G came out, unless you know networks, I don't think people understand the differences in connectivity. There are multiple science updates that occurred going from 3G, 4G, which are single tower network connections, to multi-tower network connections. And a lot of people, I don't think, understood that.
Yeah. And there's also obviously the whole concern that basically ZX considers their methodology like proprietary information.
See,
so they do not share it. They do not share it, meaning it can't be peer reviewed in the way that CAST is peer reviewed. Which, if you're using this largely for law enforcement and as evidence in court cases, that just can't be it, dude.
No,
you can't do that.
Dude.
You can't do that. You can't say this is proprietary information that we can't share our methodology with you. No, you can't be that type of company and be in law enforcement and being used in the court system. So I really hope that Cyray has changed that.
Yeah,
because that would make his methodology,
is to share how you got from point A to
it would
point
make
B.
his technology so much more credible.
Yeah, it does make it credible. However, there is a catch-22. We got to understand that, right? That look, I think that. Okay, let's just go through it from start to finish. Okay, so if I'm a software engineer and I've created a software that's going to locate individuals using their cellular databases, and I'm going to market this to law enforcement, and law enforcement is going to be my prime my prime customer that's going to use my software, then I know that software is going to be used as evidence, right? Now, when it's used as evidence, if I'm using a software that cannot be shared because it's proprietary information, and I don't want other companies replicating and popping up all over the place using the same type of software, using the same techniques, then I've got to try and keep that under wraps. However, you can make those things public if you have contracts with law enforcement.
That's a problem.
What?
He's already talking to content creators.
Oh, no.
That's a problem.
I was worried about that. Twizzle.
I was very worried about that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go around talking about
show that. I don't know if this is true, you guys, but I'm going to show you this comment here because we have a lot of people on here that aren't on YouTube. So here, check the screen here. So Thought Riot Podcast. Cy Ray told Harsh to watch episode 8. It talks about cell dumps and GPS tracking. It was a hint. Okay, so
that doesn't feel like a good thing to me, unfortunately.
That is not a good thing because that opens up the door for the state to say this man is trying to create bias.
Yep.
So this is one of my concerns that come along with it. Not to mention the amount of people that could create bias in him as an expert because they have a way to reach out to him in comments and things of that nature. Because
experts are supposed to be completely unbiased. Now we know that's not always the reality in court. Okay,
no one's unbiased,
they're paid. They're paid. So while we know that's not really always the reality, just like Brian Edelman was saying when he was doing the jury survey and that whole conversation about it, experts are supposed to be unbiased. They are supposed to report on the facts that they find. You know, they're supposed to report on whatever information they find. It's not supposed to be like only what's good for the defendant or only what's good for the state. It's supposed to be unbiased. Just this is what it is. And it does worry me, Cy Ray being a content creator and involved in the true crime community and talking to true crime creators such as us. So, if you guys don't recall, we said we would love to have him and his wife on the show when we first found out about him, but after the trial. We do not want to talk to him before the trial. I refuse to talk to him actually, because I couldn't sleep with myself at night if I talked to him. Because I would feel like I'm impeding on the trial somehow. I'm not, everybody makes their own decisions. So I'm not casting shade on Harsh or anybody else who would talk to him.
We love
That's
Harsh,
just my personal choice.
Harsh actually reached out just recently and said, it was okay if we use his content. Because you remember when what's his name?
It's not even on Harsh.
Pavarotti asked a question to us and then used a clip from Harsh to bring up the question. And we never had approval from Harsh. He reached out and said that it's okay. So, shout out to him. We appreciate him and, love his questions and everything he brings up.
But yeah, it's not even on Harsh.
No.
Even if he did reach out, even if he reached out to Cy Ray, it's not even on him if Cy Ray responded. That's on Cy Ray, honestly.
100%. But that's the concern, is that the fact that he has the ability to ask those questions.
Yeah, and I know,
concern
I know not everyone will agree with me, but it still worries me. Yeah, and he has testified in a ton of cases. He should know how to conduct himself, of course. But the thing is he's also been on the state side of things where there's a lot more trust.
Freedom.
There's a lot more freedom between judges and prosecutors and their experts than there is for the defense. The defense has it. They definitely have a tougher job. They just do. They are not trusted as much. So while I know not everyone's going to 100% agree with me on this, it's concerning to me. And the reason is because I want Bryan to have a fair trial. I want the facts to truly come out in this case. And I don't want biased information.
And Bryan Kohberger could end up being guilty, and we still want a fair trial. Just to be very brutally clear here, Bryan Kohberger could be guilty, okay? And we still want a fair trial, because that's the only way you're going to know for sure that your cops, your judicial system, your everything is doing the right thing that we expect and pay them to do. But yeah, I don't think Harsh did anything wrong by asking the question. If I was Cy Ray, what I would do until this case is over is the whole case is over, because you can get brought back up, questions and everything, is I would hand the channel over to his wife, and she needs to respond to comments. She needs to respond to emails and make it very clear that she is the one doing it, you know?
Right. And it looks like it was just a response to a comment on a video.
Yeah.
So, but
I just wouldn't respond at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But it is what it is. And thanks for sharing, Twizzle. And I did see. Wait, where did that go?
What?
Oh, Elliot said he's not using his own software. It appears that, or why he's not using his own software, it appears that his corporate key has expired. LOL. What does that mean?
So in order to use software, like to download it, you have a key that allows you into that.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I think he's joking around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just a joke.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was something serious. I didn't know exactly what that meant.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to be clear. I don't think anyone did anything wrong. I just think it's a gamble. It is a risk, you guys. And when I'm looking at cases, I'm looking at the risk assessment. Is somebody making a decision that doesn't necessarily mean the decision is wrong, but could create an unnecessary risk, you know? Could create an unnecessary risk.
Okay, Cy sold the company 2 years ago. I actually did not know that. I'll have to look into that.
Why is Cy being brought up as the expert? Why?
Just his experience, maybe? I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
This is going to be so bad. That's awful.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
So he's not in the industry anymore, whereas in the last 2 years, you've had major advancements in this technology, and you're the expert? Yeah, that's awful.
How do we know he's not in the industry at all anymore?
Someone just said he's not connected to it, right?
He sold
the company. So what? He
sold it 2 years ago.
Okay, but like, if you're running a business, you still have to have a tax ID. You still have to have an EIN. You still have to be a sole proprietor. You still have to contract out to these law enforcement agencies. So if he's not in this industry, then why is he being brought forward as an expert? Because he used to be in this industry? I'm confused now. Now I don't understand. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
If you're coming here looking to us to call out creators and judge their decisions, that's not what we do here.
Yeah,
I think
most people understand us by now.
I'm not trying to call out Harsh, because I ultimately think that it falls upon Cy Ray's shoulders if he responds or not when it comes to this case. If it has anything to do with this case at all, then there should be zero response.
Yeah, I agree. I think Harsh should have asked, right? Because
why?
Because Harsh's job is to talk about events that are in cases. So
yeah, and if you think that
the expectation is to ask the question.
Well, and I'm sure reporters, tons of them, have reached out to Cy Ray for comment.
Probably, but I'm just saying that in this whole scenario, there is no fault. So we aren't talking bad about anybody. There isn't a fault. That's what I was just saying about the risk assessment. Harsh asking the question, there's no problem there. That's what I would expect to happen. Cy Ray responding to the question, again, I don't see any problem there. What I see is the possibility of an increased risk of that situation turning into a problem, because all the state has to do is attack the experts' other
I mean, his
business
credibility,
income.
his
Yeah.
credibility, and saying, well, look, he's talking to content creators who exclusively cover this case, or at least mostly do. Not Harsh covers other cases, but you know what I mean? Like,
I
are
agree.
heavily
I
invested
agree.
in this case,
Mhm.
that heavily question all of this, that have talked about, you know, this, and Bill Thompson is so worried about like what's true and what's not true, you know, have talked about this and it's not even true. And, you know, he's communicating with this person. I think it could just end up looking really bad in court. And I think Harsh reaching out is not a problem, but I do think Cy should think twice before he responds to anybody. And I don't know what the comment was. I don't know what was responded. So, I mean, I'd have to see that, but
there's just a risk. Listen, let me just throw a few out there that I could see be used against him. And I'm not saying this is what's going on. I'm looking at it from a risk assessment point of view of the court, right?
Mhm.
All the state has to come forward and say is, of course, Cy is coming forward to speak on behalf of the defense, because this is one of, if not the biggest cases in the entire world. He gets the most eyes on it and the most free marketing for his true crime genre podcast. Overnight, he's going to pick up tens of thousands of subscribers. So, of course, he's coming forward and supporting the defense's evidence, because he needs to come forward and be seen as an expert to promote his channel. Like, that's just one. Not to mention, how long has he been working on this technology? Is he up to date on this technology? Like, they could dig and discredit his expertise, you know? And again, I'm not saying any of this is true. I don't think it's true. It's a risk assessed concern what we could see happen in the case.
Okay. Cy replied to Harsh that he could not answer his question. Okay, so you guys are essentially saying he said he couldn't respond to his question, but watch episode 8.
Yeah, I do still think that's a problem. I really do, you guys. I think that itself is a problem. And thank you, Jennifer, for that super chat. That's awesome. And yeah, I agree with you, but I'm just trying to look at a risk assessment. Again, I don't think anybody did anything wrong in that scenario, but I do think it increases the risk potential. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at a risk factor or a risk gauge here, I think answering that comment at all creates a little bit of an increased risk. Right. And like we talked about yesterday, I believe perception and presentation in court is the most valuable resource you have. The single most valuable resource. It is more valuable than expert science. I really think so.
The reputation of somebody. Yeah, I think reputation matters a lot in court. It absolutely does.
Well, not the perception.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think that somebody with low or limited credibility, like if Cy goes in there and he kills it, just incredible connection, makes a personal connection with the judge, makes a personal connection with the people at home, very human in his presentation, while simultaneously presenting great evidence that is repeatable, trustworthy, and can prove why it's trustworthy and reliable. Look, he could go in there and just smash it, grand slam, and support proof why Bryan Kohberger was somewhere else. I think that's a possibility too. I'm just always looking at the potential concerns and issues that could pop up.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure. So I mean, you know, I do like Cy podcast. I think that he is really intelligent and I think he is a great expert, but I just I do think there's risks there, like you're saying, when it comes to
unnecessary risk
yeah,
factors.
yeah, I agree. There's a few of them that I'm seeing, a few. And you know, one is the podcast, being a public figure, and one is some of the issues with his technology that have been brought up in court. And the fact that he sold his company a couple years ago and maybe not be using it. I'm curious.
And Jennifer coming in with
how that's going to work
here. And thank you again for the super chat. Jennifer says, Cy Ray said to watch episode 8 because he speaks about getting arrested on a case. It was nothing about answering his question pertaining to BK's case. And I understand that. And like I said, I don't want it to take I don't want my concerns to be taken as me saying I don't agree with it or think there's something wrong. It is strictly risk assessment. However, when he responded to Harsh, he told everybody that he is willing to communicate with the general public, right? So it has nothing to do with what he was saying. I think he could have said anything. He could have responded to Harsh and said, I think the only thing that would have been like not a concern at all is sorry, no comment. And left it at that, right? Because you're making a public declaration that you're unwilling to talk at all. This has so many eyes on it that just the fact that you're willing to direct someone in any direction, it just has me worried is all. It just has me worried. And listen, he could go into court and I could totally eat my words here, you guys. I might be, you know, just talking hot air right now. Yeah. I'm just worried about the perception of, and what I mean, okay, because I see your comment saying my argument makes no sense. Listen, this case, let me try and make it make sense. And we had this discussion yesterday in the same way too. So in this case, everything has been gagged and locked down. Okay. They don't let anybody that's connected to this case say anything related to this case. Ann Taylor herself has come out and said, we do not even respond to people because we don't want to give people the chance to use anything against us. Okay. I think that's a very reasonable way to manage this situation. Now you're bringing an expert forward that is not only an expert, but is also a content creator that has huge opportunity to bias people or communicate with people in a mass amount all at once. Okay. And there's a couple things that come with that. One, I think that there's a good argument to be had that maybe he was interested in working for the defense because it is marketing. I'm not saying that's what he's doing. I'm just saying there's an argument to be had about that. Two, it gives him the possibility to back his argument and his expert testimony after he's made it, which in my opinion, if I was the judge, I would be worried about.
Okay.
Right.
So
and that's what I mean by the perception aspects of it. The public will look at this and be like, a content creator that has, you know what I mean?
The public doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, it does. That's everything.
It doesn't when this isn't a jury trial.
It's why Bryan Kohberger is seen the way he is.
My concern, right now. I get it. My concern right now is the way Bill Thompson will twist any bit of information to discredit him. Like that is my concern.
Not my concern.
My concern is not the jurors looking him up. Like Brendan said, my concern isn't what the public thinks of him. It's what Bill Thompson is going to say to try to discredit him in court to the jurors, and maybe implying that he has a podcast and is just there to be known and make money, or that he has communicated with, pro burgers or something like that, that kind of thing. Like in implying he's biased, implying that he's out here for gain or something like that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think that's fair to attribute those things to him.
And this is a one-off situation too, because I see comments there talking about like, you know, well, then no retired police officer or officers, whatever. If they're
What?
content creators, I think this is a one-off situation where it applies in a very specific scenario, and this is the one-off.
We're not talking
scenario.
about just any retired police officer. Not all retired police officers become expert witnesses in court
and are content creators.
Not all of them do that.
Right.
So it's not like I don't think law enforcement or, you know, people can have channels and everything. I think they can. I even think expert witnesses can have, you know, be on social media and have a show or something like that. I just think that they have to be really careful about how they conduct themselves when they're a part of such a high profile case.
Yeah.
Like, if they, for instance, if this was any other case that wasn't so high profile, this would probably not be an issue at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't be talking about this at all. It's the fact that it's Kohberger. It's the fact that this is the Idaho 4 case. That's why we have these concerns. And we're just talking possibilities. Some of this could not matter at all.
Sets of 5. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And listen, you guys, I don't take, I think a lot of people take what I say and think that it is my opinion. Most of the time, I'm just bringing up potential concerns that I'm worried about. Because again, you know, I'm a salesperson and a people manager and a think tank here, and I'm trying to think about the potential problems before they happen. Not because they're problems, but I think it could become a problem, and I think it's important to plan before a problem happens.
Right.
So, like I said, he could get in court and just be an incredible expert, and I'm going to watch everything he says and be like, "Oh my gosh, this software is incredible. You know, where can I buy it?" or whatever, you know. I think you guys understand where I'm going with it. Okay. So, let's get into this document here, and I have to use the restroom though, but here we go. Okay, so did we read this? Yeah, we read all the 26th. Okay, so I'm going to use the restroom real quick, and then we'll touch on that.
Touch on what?
The 2 documents.
So am I supposed to be reading something?
No.
Okay. Well, while Brendan's gone, I guess I will bring this up really quick, which is not pertaining to Idaho 4. It's actually pertaining to Delphi, and it's just a real quick tangent, real quick, and then we'll get back on it when he comes back from the bathroom. But Fran Gohl actually finally made a decision on the contempt of court thing. You know, she ruled that the defense was not in contempt, but attributed to them that they were sloppy and negligent and incompetent in their handling of the case. So if you guys don't remember, if you haven't been following what's been going on in the case, which I know we have a bit of catching up to do, we haven't covered it much recently. The prosecutor, Nick McClelland, filed a motion to get them held in contempt of court, the defense team, after they were reinstated, for basically the same reasons Judge Gohl kicked them off the case. And finally, like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. We're only 12 days till trial. She makes a decision that they weren't in contempt, which I thought was interesting. This is like their very first win ever with Judge Gohl. Like, she's never, ever, like, given them a win until now. And I honestly think her hand was forced in this. Yeah, I think her hand was forced. I think she couldn't. I just don't think she could hold them in contempt and do anything like that, considering the Supreme Court's decision on all of it. I think it would look really bad. Not that she doesn't already look terrible. But, you know, gosh, this trial's coming up so quick, you guys, and I'm just so disappointed we're not going to be able to see it. The media has been sending in requests to have it filmed and everything, and she's just denied every single one. this trial is totally going to happen in the shadows, and it just is shady and messed up, in my opinion, and not okay, considering the defendant wants it filmed. I think if the defendant wants it filmed, they should be able to get their way. It is. I hate it. I hate that we can't see it.
The only reason I don't think a situation like that is okay is national security.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a win for them technically, that they weren't found in contempt, but not really, because she was kind of forced. And this has nothing to do with his case. It's just not punishing the lawyers. And I mean, it was already determined pretty much that they didn't do anything wrong necessarily. So
do you believe CyRay will bring more network-based evidence than simple CDR, call data location? 63% yes, 27% I don't know.
Can I tell you something?
No. So interesting. I'm gonna create another one here, and I'm listening. Yep.
So while Brennan's creating that poll, I'll only mention one more thing on the Delphi case, because this is shocking. Okay. And either tomorrow or the next day, I want to dive in to some Delphi. So, stay tuned for that. But guess what came out in court documents recently? That they had cell data from Libby's phone, and it wasn't at the crime scene during that day.
That one more time?
Up until they were found, it wasn't at the crime scene.
The phone?
Her phone wasn't there on the 13th. All that time, all that night to when they stopped searching for her, her phone wasn't there. Meaning the whole theories about the girls being killed elsewhere and then brought there are probably true. I mean, think about it. There was not pools of BLOOD everywhere, despite their necks being cut, appearing to be ensanguinated, splatters of, it all over Libby. But Abby's clean, except for her neck is totally clean and dressed. Like, there's so many indications here that the crime did not happen there in that spot. My theory was kind of that they were washed in the river, but it makes way more sense for them to have been abducted, taken somewhere, and brought back there and staged to be found. I've heard many people say they searched that whole area and didn't find them, so it was kind of weird that they did find them then. Also, I mean, just because, and I know I've heard some people who believe Richard Allen is guilty keep talking about how the crime scene was staged. Well, staged doesn't mean it wasn't a ritualistic killing. It doesn't have to mean that. It could be staged to send a message and also be a ritualistic killing. Or it could have not been a ritualistic killing, but staged that way by somebody who is involved in that religion and is trying to make it look that way. For whatever reason, whatever their sick mind came up with. The fact that they can't find any link to Richard Allen and, Nordic mythology or the girls, or there's zero connection between him and the victims and the symbolism at the crime scene. He never looked these things up. He never showed interest in them. He didn't know any of the people in town who were practicing this religion. I don't know. It's just a hard sell. I'm wondering how the state is going to try to sell their case. And of course, we don't get to see it. And it's just really disappointing for me. I really wish I could go. One thing I am happy about is that we know Andrea Burkhart's going. And
Delphi?
She's going to the Delphi trial, and I'm really happy to hear that.
Her opinions and feel like she offers
non-biased opinions. I think she's pretty
good
at being non-biased and being in the middle somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, yes.
Yep.
So I'm happy that she's going. There's several content creators going. So between all of them, Defense Diaries, all these people, hopefully we'll get a pretty good picture of what happened until the transcripts come out. But yeah, that's it. We can get back on CyRay and cell data and all that.
That is crazy though. So
I know.
just to be clear,
I want to
here,
dig more into this
her-
soon.
one of the victims, right?
Libby, yes.
Her cell phone was found at the scene, but looking back at the data and history, it shows that from the time, what they believe time of death, to the crime scene being found, the phone was not there.
Well, the time of abduction to, like, I don't know. I have to look at the court document again because I can't remember exactly the time frame, but the day of the 13th, when they were abducted, her phone wasn't there.
Okay. Wow.
Is what I know of. I don't know if it gives any more specifics. I can't remember right now. I can try to pull it up, but we're going to dig more into this anyway. So I just wanted to mention it because I saw people clamoring about it because it's insane information. I have the document. I just haven't read all the way through it yet. So
yeah,
but
we have to crazy.
We have to dig more into all of this. I really want to look at the cell data in this case because I really think it's going to matter a lot in this case. We know that they're saying that there were, suspects' phones around the crime scene and none of them were Richard Allen. And Libby, hers wasn't there when it was important for it to be there.
Yeah.
And there were people there that weren't Richard Allen when it was important and it wasn't him. So it's kind of interesting.
I agree. I think it's very interesting. Wow. Okay. So just a reminder, everyone, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you hit those 3 stars. Make sure you hit those 5 stars. Give us a rating. It helps our show get out there. And it is all because of you guys. You are the thought rioters out there, bringing the information, bringing the thought riots, bringing the data, bringing the details, and we love it. So just keep doing what you're doing. We are growing fast, and it is all because of you. So for anybody on any of the other platforms out there, it actually seems like YouTube is one of our smaller platforms in overall views right now. But it packs a punch, okay? Because YouTube has the most hustling, bustling chat out there on any of the platforms. So if you're on one of those platforms and you want to engage in the chat, you don't have to. If you want to, YouTube is really where it's at. That is where we are doing the Q&As. That is where we are doing the polls. That is where we can see what people are saying in the chat, and you can come engage or not. So just want to let you know, if you go to youtube.com and search Thought Riot Podcast. So youtube.com and search Thought Riot Podcast, spelt all the way out. Come hang out and come join in the fun. Okay, so back on topic here, because I do have a poll out right now, right? And it says, do you, and this is based off what someone was saying in the chat, do you believe there is an FBI official cast report in the Bryan Kohberger case? Interesting. I'm curious what you guys have to say.
I truly don't know.
Oh, man. Isn't that sad?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think that is really sad. Really sad. Okay.
And
all
of
right,
course,
so
we're not going to get to hear about it.
2 documents came out today on the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger docket. Now, they are tiny. They are little. There is not much in them. But what they are about, I think, is a very big deal. Now, let's dig in. So this is in the District Court of the 2nd Judicial District of the state of Idaho, in and for the county of Latah. Notice of hearing. Notice is given that the above entitled case is set for 5/2, 10 a.m. Yes, that is good. Where's the other one here?
What? State's motion to close hearings.
Wait, is that? I thought it was this one.
Okay, can you go back to the notice of hearing?
Oh, you're right. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. So motions hearing 5/2, 10 a.m. States motion to close hearing and defendant's objection.
So we're going to have a hearing about them wanting to close hearings.
Yes.
And this will be live streamed.
At the Latah County Courthouse, 522 South Adams, Moscow, Idaho. Courtroom number 3. Hearing will also be live streamed to Judge's YouTube channel. And just an update, you guys, we are going to try our best to be live on this tomorrow. We are going to put it out there. We are going to get it all set up and everything. But we have so as we're buying the studio, certain things have to happen for that purchase, and it's requiring quite a bit of time. But I will not be able to be here during that. I think Malia is going to try and get to the studio and be here for that. But I don't think I'm going to be here, at least for the beginning of it. But we're going to try our hardest to go live. You should see that thumbnail out tonight. Planning it for tomorrow.
Yeah, and even if I have to hop off here for a minute because I may have to do something in the very beginning, I might have to hop off for a minute, but it'll still be streaming and playing, and I can, chat in the chat, and then I'll be right back. Like it shouldn't take very long if I have to hop off.
Yeah. So they are going to be talking tomorrow about closing hearings.
Yes. About if they should have these motion to compel hearings closed.
It's so ridiculous.
So what is this about?
This is the second document, and then we'll get into the closed hearing details. In the District Court of the 2nd Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in and for the County of Latah, State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger, 5/14/24 at 1:30, 5/16 at 3 p.m. Notice is hereby given that Bryan Kohberger, by and through his attorneys of record, will call on for hearing the defendant's 5th motion to compel in the above entitled matter on 5/14/24 at 1:30 p.m. The defense will call on for hearing the IGG portion of their 5th motion to compel in the matter entitled matter on 5/16/24 at 3 p.m. as a closed hearing upon agreement of the parties. Counsel for the defendant hereby gives notice of the intent to present oral argument and or testimony in support of said motion. Signed, Ann Taylor, on the 29th day of April of 2024.
Wait, how can she give a notice of hearing?
So what? No, so by and through his attorneys will call on for the hearing's defendant's 5th motion to compel. The defense will call on for the hearing.
Yeah, so they agreed to have a closed hearing on the IGG portion of their 5th motion to compel.
They agreed to have a closed hearing for the IGG portion. Yeah.
So wait, the 5th, that literally confirms that they have something on the 5th motion to compel in regards to the IGG still, that they're still needing something having to do with the IGG, that they don't have it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
That confirms it.
That confirms it. You're right. Yep.
Because they're not saying that they're having a closed hearing for the entirety of the 5th motion to compel.
This also says that so counsel for the defendant hereby gives notice of intent to present oral argument and or testimony in support of said motion.
Okay, so that is citing 2 different hearings. We have the 5th motion to compel hearing on 5/14 at 1:30 p.m. and then the IGG part of the 5th motion to compel on 5/16 at 3 p.m., meaning they still need things.
Yeah, you're right. This is 2 hearings. Okay.
Having to do with the IGG.
Overlooking that. Good call out. So are they agreeing to both of these being
No.
Closed? Okay.
The first one is not closed.
Okay,
The IGG portion of the fifth motion to compel is closed.
Because I got to be honest here. The first one is the one I care about more because I believe that fifth motion to compel is the one that they talked about in his alibi and is including the cast report. I do not believe they have the cast report. I do not believe it. Interesting. It is interesting that there is still an argument to be made in regards to the IGG2. And for those of you that might be new here, welcome. If you have not watched our videos on the IGG on DNA in regards to the Idaho 4 case, man, I highly suggest it. Because the fact that there's still information that they're trying to get right now in regards to the IGG makes me less confident in the IGG.
I agree.
Does it make you feel like that?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the reason why I feel like that is, look, if there was no argument, if the IGG information, that DNA information was straight up and straightforward and like, look, you can see very clearly how you get from point A to point B, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no room for argument there. But if there's not that, then I feel like there's going to be an argument on at least the work product and how they got to said conclusion, right?
Yeah, I'm just what? So if everything was turned over to that implies not everything was turned over to the judge.
Like you think maybe their investigators found more or something?
They found something that's missing from it that wasn't
that's a
turned
bad
over.
look to have to deal with.
It has to be because the judge only gave them access to part of it. They can't motion to compel the prosecutor because the judge didn't give them access to something.
Yeah.
That means they found there's something there, a report or something having to do with this IGG that hasn't been given over at all yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll post this, you guys, this playlist. This is the Idaho 4 playlist as it pertains to all things Idaho 4. It has everything in here from talking about, some of those leaked text messages to DNA, PCA, 113 pieces of evidence, requests for discovery, IGG, the wild, wild west of IGG. I don't know. There's a lot in here. And I think that if you want to get a good bead on the depths that we've investigated this case, I really think you need to dig into our Idaho 4 playlist here. It also goes into like cell phone evidence, some of the officers' connections in the Dr. Moore case that's in Idaho, and some of the madness that we've seen there. I just suggest that you check it out. I definitely think it is a must-watch playlist, although it looks like I have some things I need to take out of there. But for everybody else on the other platforms, just youtube.com, search Thought Riot Podcast, and then on our homepage, you just click playlists, and the playlist is titled Idaho 4. Okay, so
just to update everybody on all the hearings that are coming up, okay? All of them.
Here.
And the one way you can keep track of this is if you go to the...
Hang on.
Okay. Brennan's going to pull it up. So you can pull up the case summary at the top of the docket, Bryan Kohberger docket. And
there you go.
Once you scroll all the way to the bottom of the case summary, click on the case summary.
Right here, you guys. So you come to this page and then you find the very top of the Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger.
Share. Yep. And then you just scroll all the way to the bottom and it'll show you all of the upcoming hearings and when they're scheduled for and if they're sealed or not. So it looks like we have on 5/2, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m., and we will be streaming this one, the state's motion to close hearings and defendant's objection. 5/14, motion to compel at 1:30 p.m., which I believe is 3:30 Central Time. Okay, jumping back to the one that's tomorrow, the 5/2 at 10 a.m., that will be noon Central Time because they are in Pacific or Mountain Time. But I think it's the same as Pacific. I don't know. Because when I look it up, it's like we're 2 hours ahead in Chicago. So anyway, 5/14, motion to compel at 1:30 p.m. And that is the defense 4th and 5th motion to compel. Then 5/16 is the sealed hearing we will not be able to see on the defendant's 5th motion to compel having to do with the IGG. And then 6/27 is the motion for change of venue at 10 a.m. It says it in person for some reason, though. I'm assuming that will be streamed. It's the only one that says in person, though.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I just find that weird. Why does it say in person? Is that just
6/27/2024?
Does that mean you're required? Like that must be put there because it's like you are required. You can't zoom in or anything. You have to be here. I wonder.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. One other update too. I should have said this in the very beginning, you guys. So we are very consistent with putting out something usually at least once a day, unless something stops us, some kind of content, usually live since we're going more towards the live direction. But when we transition from this studio, this awesome studio, to the even more awesomer studio, there might be a week that we are not able to stream while we get everything set up. But we will let you know ahead of time when all that happens, because there's a lot to tear down in here. We got tons of tech in here, so much. So.
No, it's 2 hours behind us. So right now it is 8:26 p.m. in Moscow, Idaho,
and in Chicago it's 10:26.
Yes,
so.
It is 2 hours. They're 2 hours behind us.
Yes.
They are in Pacific time zone. I think some of Idaho might be in Mountain time, but I don't know. But they're in Pacific.
Yes. So. So much better. Okay. So on this topic, why do you think they agreed? Let's get to the social interest. Why do you think they agreed to the closed hearing when they just recently asked to have IGG information released, opened up?
I think because it has nothing to do with what they're asking to be unsealed. They're asking for something to be unsealed, having to do with the IGG, a large portion of it excluding the family tree. They want unsealed to show corruption, essentially. And it is, I would assume Bryan Kohberger's right. I mean, it's his information. So I think this is something they don't have yet. Like I said, I think it's something that wasn't even turned over to the judge when he had that in-camera hearing where he reviewed it before he allowed them access. This is something that has not been turned over yet.
Okay.
Or else they could not have a motion to compel on it like this. It has not been turned over, and they have some kind of proof or indication that this exists, but they don't have it.
Okay.
So they can't ask to unseal it.
Right.
It can't be a part of that when they haven't even seen it yet.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. And I do think that's a reasonable assumption with that. I think that's a good idea. Because it seems like they want to release everything that they can, right? Ungag it, open it up for the public to see. It's just interesting that they're willing to close that one hearing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it pertains to the tree. Maybe there's things in there that could identify people that they don't want identified. You know, I'm not going to cast judgment on it just because I don't know what it entails. And I do agree that family members of Bryan Kohberger, if they could be revealed through the IGG, shouldn't be public. It's not fair to them.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They'll be harassed. They'll be opened up to severe harassment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think any names should be named. However, I also don't believe that they need to be named. I do not believe it. I think that they could be numbered. You transition the names to numbers.
Yeah, you could.
And this is individual 1, individual 2, individual 3, individual 4. Even if they have, you know, 120 people up there, I think that they could talk about the IGG openly, honestly, transparent, by not using names whatsoever.
It could also have to do with the FBI, though. You know?
It could. I think that, and a lot of people have been calling me the FBI lover.
You are an FBI lover. I don't know why, but you totally are.
Listen, I trust in our systems, okay? Like I appreciate being an American. I appreciate being in corporate America. I appreciate the systems that we have built to protect ourselves. Do I think these systems have problems that need continuous visibility and evolution and improvement? Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. Do I think that because we've made mistakes that we need to turn our backs and say, all of you are bad? No, that doesn't benefit anybody. I'm not looking to be a part of an anarchy country. You know, I am not looking to be part of anarchy here.
Yeah, but
I truly believe that.
I don't know. You have this weird thing where if somebody thinks the FBI could have done something corrupt in this situation, that it's implicating the entire FBI when it's not.
I don't think that, but there were a lot of FBI agents in that area. I think that if somebody is trying to suggest that the FBI is dirty, the way that the FBI functions is, excuse me, the way that the FBI functions is they have experts for different areas of investigation. And what I mean by that is, like, if they're looking for network evidence, they go to their network related agents, right? And they even have scientists there that are FBI agents, but not like field approved or field type agents. And if they need to break into a phone, then they have their cellular expert agent break into the phone. Like, there is not and what's different with the FBI versus what we see in other law enforcement or police stations is, in a local police station, a police officer wears a ton of hats, meaning that which is not a good thing in my opinion. That police officer has a lot of opportunity to manipulate, twist, to, you know, look through a keyhole, to see the case wrong, or to drive bias in the case knowingly or unknowingly. Whereas the FBI does not have that same type of option. There isn't one agent that is doing all these things. You have multiple support teams that agent turns that evidence to. So anytime you include more people, I think the likelihood of a conspiracy goes down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting that we don't have a single clue any FBI agents that were involved in this case. Like, no idea who was involved. They're not cited anywhere in any documents, which I find peculiar. there's a lot of secrecy around the FBI's involvement in this case, which is kind of weird. It feels
I don't think it's weird because I don't think the FBI had any major decision-making role here. And
I feel like if we were in any normal case, we would know the FBI expert who did the cast report at the very least. They would be talking about it. I feel like it would be more open. I feel like from the beginning, there's been implications. There's an issue here with the FBI's work on this, or somehow something got messed up. And could it not be the FBI's fault? And could it be local police's fault? For sure. It totally could be. But that could put the FBI in a bad spot. And they may not be wanting to attribute their name, to it. An agent may be like, leave me out of it.
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. I just don't know. I just think there's something weird there with it.
Or the FBI didn't make any decisions in this case whatsoever.
They picked up the DNA from Othram.
Yes, they did.
They usurped it.
Okay. But again, we got to flip the coin here because, and part of the reason I'm so, like, it's so important to clarify that is because I do think there is fault here. I do think there could be blame here. I do think that it is at least a possibility that maybe Bryan's innocent, 50-50, right? Because I don't have all the information. I do think it's at least a possibility Bryan Kohberger is innocent. Then it comes down to, okay, who's the reason why they believed so intently that he was guilty, right? And I don't think that value falls on the FBI because they didn't make any decisions.
Yeah.
So if we're blaming the FBI because the FBI has a history, right? So we're blaming them essentially because of historic evidence of the past in situations where the FBI was shady, then we're defaulting or blaming the right person that caused this.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just see issues around the cast report and the IGG, which are two aspects of this case that the FBI were involved in.
Let's see.
And Vargas, FBI agents going to her house. Like, there's several things that are like, what is going on here? Does that necessarily mean the FBI did something corrupt in this case? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. We don't have any proof, but it's just something weird. It's just something odd that, I'm going to note in the back of my head. Do
you want to read the poll results?
Oh, I didn't hear you ask me that. Do you believe there is an FBI official cast cellular report in the Bryan Kohberger case? 48% answered no, 28% answered yes, and 22% said I don't know.
Okay. So I saw a couple people bringing up this idea that there is no cast report.
So there is a new poll up, you guys.
There is a new poll up. Do you believe there's an FBI official cast report in the Bryan Kohberger case? 48% said no, they do not believe there is one. That's a pretty large percentage, I got to be honest here. And 28% say yes, 22% say I don't know. Okay, so my opinion on the topic. Excuse me. Okay. I think the attempt to create a cast report was made, okay?
Okay.
And I believe that there are very strict specifications for a cast report to be officially called a cast report, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we read in that video talking about the cast report, where we went through literally page by page of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, in order for a cast expert, FBI expert, to come forward and speak on the cast report and speak on the science and speak on why they can prove that a suspect was in this area at that time or traveled this way or whatever, anything having to do with any of the science that the cast team works with, you have to have certain specifications that allow it reliable enough to be used in court. So I think the cast report was attempted.
Okay.
I'm concerned that they don't have the minimum requirements to be used in a court of law. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there were certain requirements. I don't remember what they all were, but there were requirements that made it fit for court, basically. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole issue with the draft. Like, why has Ann Taylor had a draft all this time? And they claimed it was just waiting to be peer reviewed. But is it more than that? Is there a reason it's just been a draft all this time and it took them this long to, she even mentioned a drive test. If they waited all this time to do a drive test,
do a drive test.
I know, but if they waited until 2024 or the end of 2023 to do a drive test, that's a major problem.
It's a major flaw in the science.
Yeah.
Yep. Because of how quick cellular networks and networks in general update, how quickly they grow. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, like, you remember how we were talking about Ray's technology?
Yes.
And how he may not use it?
Mm-hmm.
If he didn't use it in court, like, do you think his strategy is just going to be poking holes in the state's evidence then? Or is he literally going to try to map it out like a cast agent with GPS data?
I really hope that is not the goal, to poke holes. I really hope that's not the goal. So use cautiously. Okay. Do not rely on testimony. I was trying to look for the overview on the minimum requirements for the mapping. Export cell site. Okay. That's okay. I'll find it later. I'll post this report and find it later, you guys. But on the cast report information, there are documents out there that give you the rundown on like what is required for it to be used in court.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's standards.
And I'm wondering if we don't have that.
Well, I mean, with the lack of cell towers, I mean, I could see that possibly being an issue. But say they had no ability to triangulate him with cell towers at all. Okay. So take the cell towers out of the equation. Say they're so terrible they can't even use them. It's just junk. Would just GPS... I mean, we don't know. See, the thing is, we don't know if GPS would be okay.
I don't think just GPS would be okay. I do not have faith in just GPS. I don't.
So many people do. So many people do in this case right now. They're saying, well, he's going to go with GPS and GPS is going to be so precise and much more reliable. I'm not convinced of that either. Do I think that he will be using GPS data? Yeah, I do. I think he will be using geo-blended background application data and things like that, which is GPS, amongst other things. So, I mean...
And
I just worry with how bad the service is in that area that GPS won't be that much better.
And just a reminder, you guys, remember, this is intentionally a family friendly show, right? Where we got to keep the chat family friendly also. And I've already seen a few things come through in the chat today, which I understand, I get it. But we're trying to keep it as a certain rating. So I'm already going to have to delete or turn off the live chat for this video. So just try our best to keep it science focused, you guys, and focus on the Thought Riot, right? Let's keep it family friendly. The whole point to this show is science, objectivity, and think tanking. So we are not a streamer. We aren't set up to be like streamers hanging out. You know, this is set up to be a show like, you know, the well, I can't share that information right now, but yeah, just help us out there and support that so we don't have to turn off the live chat on our videos. I would rather not do that. So
that's so confusing. I hate when you're like, I can't say this right now.
You confused me because you said GPS doesn't need a live tower signal right away. What do you mean?
Like,
by
why?
That? I'm a little confused.
Also,
by
why
that
is
question.
GPS not enough? And I think what they're talking about is that you said you could, for instance, use your phone and it will like once it's within range, it will use that data to give it like a geolocation stamp kind of thing.
Okay. So GPS I've talked about is very unreliable by way of things interrupt its signal. We have a whole video out there on GPS, and I'll get to your question, but the reason why it's not enough with just GPS is because of how much things, trees, weather, rotation of the earth, electrons, how much these things interfere with GPS signal. So GPS signal is a radio wave blasting out at just under the speed of light, with some of the most precise clocks in probably the universe that won't even be a second off for millions and millions of years. And once it gets down to the phone and the tower, the base tower, the ground tower, it uses a technique called trilateration, using a triangle measuring system to locate the distance from the tower and the satellite to the phone. However, in that triangle line of connection, we don't know what is in the way causing the signal to get slowed down. Anytime that signal gets slowed down, it creates the potential for variables, right? Now, if he has something on in the background, like Google, GPS, Maps, any of these other applications, that is live tracking at all times. So there wouldn't be that question because there is a previous amount of data that tracks him to a location and a past amount of data. What would deter it is if he logged on and had all his GPS turned off and then turned his GPS on and then turned it off again. That would give a flawed result. So when you're using GPS as evidence, I don't think just GPS is enough. You also got to use the geo-blended data connections with Bluetooth to prove location. Were you connected to a car? Does that car recognize other towers? Do other phones recognize other towers? Anything like that.
And yeah, the settings matter too, right?
It does.
Like Kate just said, like your settings in your phone also, that matters for how precise the GPS can get.
Yeah, I agree with you. It does matter big time. Absolutely.
His phone was not connecting to the towers during the time of the crime, so how can cast be made? Well, just because his phone wasn't connecting to those towers, which they only said it wasn't connecting to the towers around the crime scene. They didn't say it wasn't connecting to any towers.
Yeah.
They said it quit reporting to the tower, meaning in Moscow. where they believe he was during the crime, committing this crime.
You're correct. Yep.
So he could have connected to other towers. Now that's a bit of a stretch, but if he wasn't connecting to any towers, he could still be connecting to GPS towers, which they would not see in a cellular data dump, which is what we know they got based off the PCA, is that they got a data dump from the cell towers and that they saw his phone was connected and then disconnected, and they believed he drove into Moscow, and that his phone wasn't connected to any towers between what were the times, like 2:47 and 4 something a.m. But he still could have, his phone wasn't necessarily off. It could have been on and connecting to GPS.
Yeah.
Connecting to other things, just not cell towers.
For sure.
I mean, his alibi is that he was somewhere else. Now, with the cast report, obviously the cast report wouldn't be in regards to the time of the crime. It would be in regards to the 12 incidents of stalking, essentially, is what that implied is, yes. So pre-crime and post-crime. So the 12 times they claimed he went there, which they claim there's no stalking now, but that that's still a claim in the PCA, is that he went there 12 times. And his route after the crime, that's what the cast report most likely would pertain to, unless in search warrants after his arrest, they got background application data showing he was connected to towers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
I just don't think
or GPS location.
I just don't think one piece of evidence is ever enough. You only use one piece of supporting evidence if you don't have more. You know, and we've gone over, and you know what I'll do here. I'm going to write this down. I'm not going to share with you guys what I'm writing down, just because we'll bring it to the table, the different types of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
So hang on.
Exactly, Tara. If he lost connection, he still could have had and would most likely have some kind of GPS signal at some point in those 2 hours. Jennifer said, if it's true that he could be home and still pinged in the Moscow tower, then why is the cell data even an issue? Is that true or not? If it's true that he could be home and still pinged to the Moscow tower, then why is the cell data even an issue? Well,
the cell data is an issue because it's creating a character profile of who Bryan Kohberger is. And it is a really, really, really bad look for him. And it creates a monster. Again, going back to how important perception is in any case. I think it's the number one most important thing in any case, period. The single most important thing.
Definitely one of the most important. So I think it could still be an issue. For one, Jennifer, I just highly doubt Payne's ability to track anybody on cell phone towers. And I think it's very possible we could be seeing one of these applications, one of these software services being used by the police department. And they don't have great cell coverage. So it could be giving them some idea of where he is. Like, say they're looking at what cell tower was it that could connect him? Say he's going over to Moscow, even though he's still at home. Which one was it?
What cell tower could connect him?
Yeah, you said it was possible for him to be at home and be pinging in Moscow.
I don't know the name of the cell tower.
Do you remember which one it was on the map? I'm not asking for a name.
I don't.
Like, is it one in Pullman or one in Moscow?
I believe that it either has to be one of two, either the one north of 1122 or the one south. The large full tower. Yeah, but
there's one in Pullman that's pretty decent size too.
Yeah, but I thought we were talking about Moscow towers.
It wouldn't matter if it's a Moscow tower or not. We're talking about the 12 times he supposedly traveled to the crime scene.
Right.
Pre-crime.
Yeah.
Who said it had to be a Moscow tower?
I mean,
they could be looking at a
towers over there.
They could be looking at a Pullman tower and just seeing that it's that way.
Got it.
that it's in that direction
so
going towards Moscow.
There wasn't any towers from Pullman that are going that direction. I think that the one time they're talking about is I believe that that's a really great question, but I believe that they are towers in Moscow that we're seeing him connect to.
Again, if it's the Paradise one, it could just be, remember the sectors, Jennifer. It could be that they're just seeing him in one sector, and that sector covers the crime scene and also the direction of his house. Like, it could just be facing west, and the tower is, you know, I mean, if say it's the Paradise Ridge one, it is southeast of the crime scene and also southeast of his home.
Yeah.
So could it just be in one sector and they can't tell how far away it is? Like, there's that huge range of just, it's just not precise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right.
And they're just assuming. And I mean,
and you gotta remember why it's not precise. That's the most important part, in my opinion, of why it's not.
But another thing is he very well, we know he got pulled over in Moscow at one point. Yeah. He could have been traveling to Moscow all the time, but not going anywhere near the crime scene.
Yeah. So hang on. I'm trying to find
it doesn't matter
a picture here,
honestly, unless they can put him in the neighborhood of the crime scene. I don't see how any of it's going to matter. It may not matter at all, unless they can put him in the place of the neighborhood, or put him, like the defense, putting him somewhere totally away from the crime scene. I think that's the only way this is going to matter, is proving that it's exculpatory that he was not anywhere near there, or proving that he was.
Yeah, I think that
if it's anything less than that, if they can't put it within any kind of range of something more precise than just he was in Moscow, then it's probably not going to matter.
I think their character assassination has been so successful on Bryan Kohberger that I do not believe that attacking the investigators is going to benefit the defense right now.
You think what's going to benefit the defense?
I think that the character assassination has been so successful on Bryan Kohberger that the defense coming out and trying to poke holes in the investigation, directly pointing at the investigators, Moscow Police Department, I don't foresee that helping them in any way, shape, or form. Yep. So here are the towers, and this is a video that we put out quite a while ago, you guys. And it is the cell phone focused video here. So hang on, I'll get you the link. It has been used far and wide by almost all the true crime creators, even when they didn't give shouts, and that's okay. Okay, so here's the three towers, right?
Okay.
One. Can you guys see my
None
mouse?
of those cross over into Pullman, though.
2, 3. Or, yeah, 3. And here's the big concern, is that you don't have anything like this.
What do you mean?
This is what's required for triangulation. Yeah, that was passive aggressive, but I was joking. This is what's required for triangulation, and there is nowhere in Moscow that has them with 3 towers overlapping.
You know, what's funny is
this is how triangulation works, is this right here.
What's funny to me is this is what CAST used, but this is exactly what they were using to admonish ZX track software, is them using the shapes. And like you said, the shapes don't actually matter.
No, it's just a representation.
Right.
This just represents where the coverage line matters. And like what I was trying to talk about with the circles and why those circles don't matter is, let's say he had a tower that he had on his graph report, whatever, and drew a circle around it. Okay. And the suspect was over here, and the suspect was connected to this side of the tower, right? Then does it matter if he drew a circle or a V? Like, does that really matter?
Okay, but
it doesn't change where the suspect was.
So remember, we just looked at that map, and you saw the tower, how far it went north and how it barely went south.
This one here,
or wait, it might have went south, but there was one part of it. Okay, so it does go south, but do you see how like the sides, or at least the left side, it doesn't go very far. Something is stopping it from going to the
far,
left.
but yes, I know what you're talking about.
And it goes way up north and it goes way down south. So we have like this elongated shape. It is nothing like a perfect circle. So when you have sectors in those circles, like say he's at the farthest point of that tower south, connected to it still. Like, are they going to draw circles out until that many sectors?
You can, because the circle isn't the evidence. The point where the suspect is on the graph is the evidence.
So you're saying the calculation, the mathematical equation that gets you there with the RTT time is what's important. The circle is just for a visual representation for people to understand.
Exactly. So it's like semantics, bringing up something to just deflect the focus on the report. Because does the circle matter? Drawing a circle, drawing a triangle, drawing a hexagram, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change that the cell phone is going to be plotted on this point, and that the tower is here, and the distance from the tower to here is the number. That is the evidence, not that it's circular, triangular, octagonular, you know?
So you got a question from Happy asking if a cell tower can detect all cellular devices around it. So it depends on what you're talking about, because remember, there's closed network towers in this area that are only for emergency services. So no, those towers wouldn't detect our phones at all. They're on a different wavelength, different frequency. Our phones would not connect to those closed networks, basically. Happy asks if a tower can connect to all devices in the area.
Yeah.
Now, there's also an instance of if it's overloaded, if there's too many phones.
Yeah.
Would it still be connected?
Yes.
It just wouldn't have good service.
Yes.
But that would make it difficult to track somebody using an overloaded tower, I would assume.
Not necessarily. No. So the science in these towers, it feels like people are underestimating it. So if we have 3 towers, okay, here, let me find my graph here. Okay, if we have 3 towers, got it? Is this pulled up?
I believe the chart.
What?
ZJ is asking for the chart. We can post a picture of it in Discord. Are you talking about the triangulation chart? Just the triangles with the circles? But go ahead.
Here, do a poll. Great one. Okay.
Just any?
So, well, here, let's get through this. So that you can understand what I'm seeing here. Ready? So let's say this is a representation of an area in a crime, right? And they're trying to figure out the who, what, where, and why. And a phone is right here. Okay.
Okay.
but this tower is overloaded, but it's closest to this tower, right? Then this tower is going to communicate with this tower and communicate with this tower and communicate with your phone and come up with a figure of how many people can I move from this tower to this tower? How many people are moving in the direction from this tower to this tower to open up space for this person here? What this one tower is going to do is going to take all the people that are connected to it and find out who needs it the least and move those people to another tower. So when people are talking about towers, there's this idea that, like, let's pretend there's only 100 spaces. Once there's 100 spaces, nobody else can join. That's not how it works.
Okay.
If you are in range of that tower, your phone is going to ping to that tower.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, it just, I don't know, when you think about it, like, because you know how, like, they do a drive test where they test the signal strength and everything. Like, I have been in an area where there was an overloaded tower before.
Yeah.
And I had
every sports game.
It wasn't a sports game, but it was very overloaded, and I couldn't get data for anything. Like, literally could barely use my phone at all. It was like being in a complete dead zone. When normally it was an area that had incredible coverage, like super good coverage, but it was super overloaded. So with it being that crappy, I just assumed it would make it difficult. I just assumed that.
I mean, yes and no, because the tower is going to come up with that mathematical equation of who should be there and who shouldn't be there. And
yeah, but what about, so when it happened to me, it didn't pass me off to another tower, and because I never got coverage as long as I was there.
I mean, your phone was there communicating with the tower.
Yeah, but I didn't get coverage. Like, I couldn't use it. Like, it didn't pass me off to a tower to get me better coverage.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's really hard to explain because you're not only talking about tower science, but you're also talking about coverage areas too. Because how do we know that that was an overloaded tower and it wasn't just a bad coverage area? How do you know there wasn't some kind of interference between you and the tower? You know what I mean? There's a ton of different variables and factors, and that's why, as we're talking about GPS and evidence in this case, I don't think there's just one. I don't think there's just one. I don't think one is enough. Just bringing GPS, not enough, in my opinion. That is not going to make me confident. Just bringing RTT time, not enough, in my opinion. That's not going to make me confident. I saw somebody asking on here too, that do I believe that Brett Payne, the lead investigator in the Bryan Kohberger case, only had access to the RTS, aka RTT, which is round trip time, which is the travel time that gives you the distance from the tower to the phone based on the connection going to the phone and back to the tower. Okay, it comes up with a figure. It calculates the average of where you're at. I believe that Brett Payne, I'm not sure what Brett Payne had. It feels like, yes, that there was RTT time, right?
I'm kind of assuming he just got the
fog data
CDR.
science. Well, CDR is RTT.
Right. I'm assuming that's what he got, and that's what was used in some kind of software. Because I think there's no possible way he just did this on his own. He had to have software.
That's what I'm thinking, and that's why I'm also worried about Cy-Ray, because is Cy-Ray going to bring forward software that's already being used by other companies? There's minor differences to make it proprietary, but overall it's very similar, right? Because in my experience in network companies, right, not just cellular, at any network companies, all the science is using the same numbers, the same figures, the same science, the same math. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So All right, I want to get into this before we close out the night real quick. I just want to share, since we're on this topic, we're talking about cell phones, right? And why don't you put a poll up about like cell phone evidence? What's going to be the strongest evidence in the Idaho 4 case? I'm curious what that poll is, and put something like cell, DNA, you know what I mean? Okay, so as we are talking about cell phone evidence, you guys, we wanted to dig in by request to the Rex Heuermann Gilgo 4 science, right? So this is a good brief breakdown of I think this was the request for bail or something like that, or the reduced sized response by the defendant. And this goes into at least enough cell phone evidence to show a good compare and contrast from great cellular and network evidence versus what we're seeing in the Idaho 4, which is, in my opinion, wish-washy, you know? So I'm going to briefly go through this. For those of you that don't know Rex Heuermann is this man right here on the right. He is suspected to be the serial killer of the Gilgo 4, right? Hang on. And they believe that there is much more than these 4. Here's a few more that they believe he could be tied to. So we don't know if he's tied to all these women, you guys, but this is a good rundown of, like, you know,
there's a lot more they think he is tied to, but yeah.
There's a lot more. Yeah, there is a lot more. So
cell, GPS tracking, DNA, surveillance footage,
expert
eyewitness.
Yep. That's good for sure. Okay. All right. So defendant Rex Heuermann stands before the court charged by the grand jury with murder in the first, murder in the first, murder in the first, murder in the second degree, and murder in the second degree. What?
So strongest evidence for convicting him?
Yeah, strongest evidence against him. I mean, that assumes the same outcome. Okay, so discovery of the victims here is what we're going to be digging into within the cellular type evidence. This is just where the victims were found. Okay, so recent investigation. On January of 2022, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office signed an experienced team of investigators, analysts, and prosecutors to work jointly with law enforcement partners from the Suffolk County Police Department, New York State Police, Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, and Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is where we get a lot of this evidence, okay? So we're skipping down here to what?
So there's a poll up right now, and it's what you think the strongest inculpatory evidence will be towards Bryan Kohberger, meaning the strongest towards he being guilty. I will do a poll after this on what you think the strongest exculpatory, meaning proving his innocence, evidence will be in the case.
Absolutely.
So just vote on this one, and then we'll do exculpatory next.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, it's Suffolk County. I don't know if you're saying it wrong.
This discovery led to a comprehensive investigation of defendant Heuermann, which consisted of over 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and other legal process to obtain evidence. As discussed more fully below, among the items uncovered were cell phone billing records, CDR.
Okay.
For defendant Heuermann, corresponding to cell site locations for the burner cell phones used to arrange meetings with 3 of the 4 victims. 2, the taunting calls made to a relative of Miss how do I say that? Barthélemy?
Yeah, I think that's it.
3, a call made by a detective to Miss Barthelемy's cell phone while looking into her disappearance. 4, calls checking voicemail on Miss Bernard Barnes' cell phone after her disappearance. In addition, Heuermann lived in Massapequa Park, where the victims were believed to have disappeared from, and he worked in Midtown Manhattan in the vicinity where the taunting calls were made to the sister of Barthélemy.
Everybody's having a hard time with the poll, you guys. Look, it's just what you think is going to stick in the minds of the jurors the most. Like, what do you think the jurors are going to have a hard time looking past? Like, this makes me think he could be guilty. You know, so just answer that, and then we'll do exculpatory. What you think the strongest evidence that would, exonerate him. We'll do that poll next. This is just what you think is going to stick in the minds of the jurors the most.
This is what the evidence that's going to hurt him the worst. That's going to be the biggest problem for the prosecution. I mean, the defense.
Right.
As set forth more fully below, defendant Rex A. Heuermann is believed to be the person who used the burner cell phones to communicate with each of the 4 victims prior to their disappearance, and who used Miss Bernard Barnes' cell phone and Miss Barthélemy's cell phones after their deaths. Both defendant Heuermann and these burner cell phones had significant connections to both Midtown Manhattan and Massapequa Park, New York. All right, so here we go. So the disappearance and murder of Maureen Bernard Barnes. Maureen Bernard Barnes was last seen on July 9th, 2007 in New York City. At that time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. On July 6, 2007, Bernard Barnes' cell phone was contacted by a burner cell phone, an unregistered phone that you can buy at, gas stations or whatever, for those of you that don't know what burner phone is. Between July 6, 2007 and July 9th, 2007, there were 16 interactions between this burner phone and Bernard Barnes' cell phone. On July 9th, 2007, the last cell site location for Bernard Barnes' cell phone was approximately 11:56 p.m. in Midtown Manhattan near the 59th Street Bridge. Thereafter, the Bernard Barnes cell phone had no further activity until July 12th of 2007. On July 12th of 2007, 3 days after her disappearance, 2 outbound calls were made from Bernard Barnes' cell phone, checking her voicemail from a cell site location near the Long Island Expressway in Islandia. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And this is all... They were able to tell this all from cell site location data. So, I'll speed through these. So, Melissa Barthelemy was last seen on July 10th, 2009 in New York City. She has the same kind of background as the previous. She was believed to be a sex worker, same kind of MO. So thereafter, the Barthelemy cell phone was contacted by this burner phone on July 6th, 9th, July 10th, 2009, which was the last date she was seen alive. On July 10th, 2009, cell site records indicate the burner cell phone traveled from Massapequa Park to Midtown Manhattan. Okay. Later that evening, the Barthelemy cell phone traveled from Midtown Manhattan to Massapequa.
Massapequa.
Yeah. With the last cell site location being Massapequa on July 11th, 2009 at approximately 1:43 a.m. On July 11th, 2009, Miss Barthelemy's cell phone was used to make an outbound call checking her voicemail from a cell site located in Freeport. On July 11th and July 12th, 2009, the Barthelemy phone made 2 more outbound calls checking her voicemail from cell site locations on Babylon. On July 17th, July 23rd, August 5th, and August 19th, and August 26th, 2009, the Barthelemy phone made taunting phone calls to Miss Barthelemy's family members, some of which resulted in conversations between the caller, who was male, and a relative of Melissa Barthelemy, in which the male caller admitted killing and sexually assaulting Miss Barthelemy. Crazy. As described, the cell site locations of the Barthélemy phone during these taunting calls were all Midtown Manhattan. Okay.
Yeah, that's gosh, what a sicko, man.
Yes, for one, he's a sicko. I listen, there are very few situations, you guys, where I will commit without seeing 100% of the evidence to a belief, right? And obviously, nothing I say is concrete. Who knows? I'm full of it. Who knows? I'm just full of hot air. The only thing I know in life is that I know nothing, okay? But when I'm giving my opinion on a case, if I feel like there's enough evidence that it is pretty dang concrete, I'll commit to that. This is one of the very few situations where I'm confident saying my opinion is that he is guilty. And part of that is because I believe in and understand the technology of cell site data. Now, remember though, you guys, the important factor here, I can't even stress how important this is enough, is this is New York. Do you guys realize how many cell phone towers there are in New York?
Long Island too. Yeah.
A lot. So what makes this different from the Idaho 4 case is that in Bryan Kohberger's situation, there aren't enough cell phones to overlap and give trustworthy evidence, right?
Yep.
All right, so the disappearance murder of Megan Waterman. Megan Waterman was last seen alive in the Holiday Inn in Hauppauge, New York on June 6, 2010 at approximately 1:30 a.m. At that time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. On June 5th, 2010, Miss Waterman's cell phone was contacted by another burner cell phone, which had just been activated that day. Interesting. Thereafter, the Waterman phone communicated with this burner cell phone on June 6, 2010 at approximately 1:31 a.m., which is around the time Megan Waterman was captured on video surveillance exiting the Holiday Inn in Hauppauge for the last time. Following that communication, the burner cell phone had no further phone activity. However, cell site records show that the Waterman phone traveled to, how do I pronounce it? Massapequa Park, with the last cell site location being in Massapequa Park in approximately 3:11 a.m. in the vicinity of the residence of the defendant Heuermann. Okay. So
I just would rather listen to Brendan's pronunciation instead of the correct one.
The disappearance and murder of Amber Costello, number 4, right? For the Gilgo 4. Amber Costello was last seen alive on September 2nd, 2010, leaving her residence at 1112 America Avenue in West Babylon during the late evening hours. At this time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. On September 1st, 2010, the day prior to the disappearance of Amber Costello, Miss Costello's cell phone was contacted by a burner cell phone. On September 1st, 2010, this burner cell phone had communications with the Costello phone at approximately 11:33 p.m. and 11:34 p.m. During those communications, the burner cell phone connected to cell site towers in West Amityville and Massapequa Park. Thereafter, the burner cell phone traveled to West Babylon in proximity to the residence of Amber Costello and had contact with Costello phone at approximately 12:05 a.m. on September 2nd of 2010. Okay, this isn't talking about cell phone data. At approximately, okay. So it looks like there was, just according to witness following the ruse, this client said he was just her friend. Tell her I'll give her a call, and walked out the front door. Approximately 1:18, the burner cell phone sent a text message to the Costello phone, which stated, "That was not nice. So do I get credit for next time?" Okay, so records establish that defendant Heuermann's wife. Oh, we don't need to go into that, but this is cell phone evidence. Have you heard it?
What, that his wife's cell phone evidence?
Defendant Heuermann's wife was out of New York for the disappearance of Barthélemy, Waterman, and Costello. Okay, so significant travel records show that on July 8th, 2009, defendant Heuermann's wife departed the United States for Iceland. On August 18th, 2009, defendant Heuermann's wife returned to the United States. Consequently, defendant Heuermann's wife was out of the country during the time of Melissa Barthélemy's disappearance. Based upon cellular telephone billing records on July 4th, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife traveled from New York to Maryland. On June 8th, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife returned to New York from Maryland. Consequently, based upon the cellular telephone records, the cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife was out of New York State during the time of Megan Waterman's disappearance. Convenient, right?
Very convenient.
And it's, I mean, you never know who's holding that phone. Am I right? Based upon cellular telephone billing records on August 28, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife traveled from New York to New Jersey. On September 5th, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by his wife returned to New York from New Jersey. Consequently, the cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife was out of New York State during the time of Amber Costello's disappearance. Now, here's the connection. Cellular billing records for cell phone of Rex Heuermann. During the times of the disappearance and murders of the victims, defendant Heuermann owned an architectural business located in Midtown Manhattan, and his business was named subscriber of Heuermann's cell phone, which was active during the times of the victims' disappearances and subscribed to Heuermann's home address in Massapequa Park, although cell site records from that time period no longer existed. Investigators obtained cellular billing records which showed general location information for Heuermann's cell phone. A review of these records, as well as Heuermann's American Express records, showed numerous instances where Heuermann was located in the same general location as the burner cell phones used to contact victims Barthélemy, Waterman, and Costello, as well as the use of Bernard Barnes Barthélemy's cell phone when they were used to check voicemail and make taunting phone calls after the women disappeared. Significantly, investigators could find no instance where Heuermann was in a separate location from these other cell phones when such a communication event occurred.
They couldn't find any instance where he wasn't near those phones.
None.
The burner phones.
Every single CSLI, CDR, cell phone triangulation that occurred when calls were made, voicemails were checked, or burner phones were located, Heuermann was with those phones every time.
Well, him with his phone.
Yes.
Was with that burner phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they have Rex Heuermann's phone, and then they have the burner phones. Rex Heuermann probably thought he was safe going and buying a burner phone and only calling these girls from the burner phone. However, okay, that burner phone is communicating with his phone. Not only that, his phone is communicating with the same towers that the burner phone is. So when you look at the burner phone's CSLI CDR data and you look at Rex Heuermann's, they are both showing the same information, the same RTT, the same side of the tower, the same everything.
So
this is incredible. So data.
One thing is they mentioned there were cell site location information that was no longer available. And we just talked about this the other day when we read through the cast report details, that document where it tells us what's required of a cast report, what they include in it, and saying that certain companies only keep that CSLI for so long. So if that is gone, then
AT&T was 7 years, but
but once that's gone, then they don't
have it.
Yeah, but they said they used billing records.
They used billing records, yes. So
that's CDR
is CSLI, and what that does is gives you the RTT location, which by itself on a single tower is not reliable. One tower is never reliable enough. Never. But in this situation, they were able to get the call details of the burner phones and Heuermann's phone and prove they were using the same towers at the same times with the same kind of RTT, the same location. Like, that is killer evidence on 4 occasions. 4. Incredible. So,
way more than 4. It was way more than 4.
Well,
it was numerous
occasions. This is just 4. This
4,
document.
you're talking about 4 victims, but this is way more than 4 occasions. This is numerous calls to family members, to victims, all kinds of things. I'm talking about
the totality of 4 situations and whatever that entails within each of those situations. But yes, this is, in my opinion, not questionable.
Yeah.
In my opinion, this is open and shut information.
But it's really crazy that it's just one tower because, yeah, ordinarily one tower would be nothing.
Yeah.
It would be like, what is this? This isn't proving nothing.
It's really crazy the lengths that they can go to connect people to crimes. They weren't even using Heuermann's phone. They were like, whatever. They were able to connect the burner phones, the phone that he assumed kept him safe.
The phone that was harassing these women or contacting these women or their families. Yeah.
For example, on July 10th, 2009, the day Melissa Barthelemy was last seen alive, both the burner phone and the defendant Heuermann's phone were in the area of Massapequa and traveled together towards New York City. So they're seen traveling together. The phone, the burner, and Heuermann's phone. Thereafter, both Miss Barthelemy's phone and Heuermann's phone traveled eastbound towards Massapequa. Incredible evidence. That's the kind of evidence we want to see. Is there going to be evidence and proof that Bryan Kohberger's phone communicated with other devices? Could they be pulling other device information to say, look, let me show you a comparison of this other device that just so happened to pick up, an attempted Bluetooth connection, an attempted Wi-Fi connection, an attempted, or it gives the identical RTT time that is proven to be with this phone in this area. Like, I just think that people think about the cell phone records and think, it's a string connecting to a phone to a tower, when, in my opinion, this kind of evidence can be used in so many different ways. I don't even think we're capable of figuring out what they all are.
Yeah.
On July 14th, 2009, at approximately 7:15 p.m., cell site records indicate the burner phone used to contact Miss Barthelemy prior to her disappearance had activity in Manhattan. On this same date, between approximately 6:58 p.m. and 7:22 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's cell phone also showed call locations in New York City, putting him there. Following Miss Barthelemy's disappearance on July 17, 2009, at approximately 12:40 p.m., a male caller used the Barthelemy cell phone to contact Miss Barthelemy's family. The Barthelemy phone was located in New York City at this time, specifically attached to a cellular tower located at 4 Penn Plaza, which is approximately 2,372 feet, or 0.45 miles from Heuermann's then office space, which, unfortunately, cell site records for burner phone, cell phone used to contact Miss Brainard Barnes were not obtained at the time of her disappearance and no longer exist. That's weird how it goes from that to that. Okay.
That's a notation.
Yeah.
It's a footnote.
Yep, I got you. Then office space, which at the time was located at 19 West 36th Street, New York, New York. See illustration below. On this same date at approximately 1:45 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's phone also show a call location in New York City. Yeah. So they feel like there's at least enough reliability here to show a location. I think that's interesting.
So wait, what is that chart showing exactly? Where the victim's phone was and his office?
Yep.
Okay.
That's like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
0.45 miles or 2,000 feet. 2,000 feet. On July 22nd, 2009, at 6:51 p.m., cell site records indicate the burner cell phone had activity in the New York City, specifically attached to a cellular tower located at 19 West 34th Street, which is approximately 872 feet or 0.16 miles from defendant Heuermann's then office space, which at the time was located at 19 West 36th Street, New York, New York. On this same date, at approximately 5:12 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's cell phone listed a call located in New York City. Again, like repetitive proof over and over and over. And the evidence they're using to gain these averages, because this is an average locator.
So what exactly is this proving?
I think this is proving that cell phone science is not, as long as you understand it, there is a certain level of reliability in that you're actually not going to find in other science.
Okay, so they're just showing it's
great evidence as to why.
They're just showing it's really close to his office.
They're showing it's really close to his office, but you got to understand, in order for them to show you that it's really close to his office, they have to locate it. And they've said in here already, these reports are so old, they didn't have the tower connections. They're using RTT times with towers and data dumps.
So right there, are they just showing the sector it could be in?
Correct.
They're not even showing a precise location.
Nope, which is what you would see. This is what we would see, is they're giving you the area it could be in, because cell towers are triangle. There's a certain amount of antennas on each side. That phone's going to be connected to one of the antennas on that triangle, and it will be laid out in sectors. Like, for some reason, my mouse will pull up here. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. So like right here.
Yeah, you just can't really see it. Not well.
And what they get from those CDR, 7/22/2009 at 6:51 p.m. outgoing call to number, duration is 0.08 minutes or 5 seconds. It gives the LACC ID number, the address that it's roughly at, and location.
And doesn't that say the coordinates at the top?
Yep.
Or no, that's the phone number, and it says the
Oh, right here is the address. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's address. On July 23rd, 2009, at approximately 1:39 p.m., cell site records indicate that a burner cell phone had activity in New York City, specifically attached to a cellular tower located at the same address we just looked at, the 19 West 34th Street, which is approximately 872 feet or 0.16 miles from Heuermann's then office space. On that same date, at approximately 12:48 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's cell phone listed a call located in New York, New York.
So it's identical. His phone and his burner phone.
Correct.
In the same general sector, which is very close to his office.
And if this information wasn't reliable, how did they have two different phones with repeatedly provable locations? Do you get what I'm saying there? Do you get where I'm coming at? You're having two phones that are giving the same result.
Yeah,
that's reliability. That's showing a level of reliability. I don't think this is something you would ever bet your life on, but this is reliability here. Repeatable evidence, repeatable science.
And thank you so much, Shaggy, for gifting a membership. I saw you say you are going to bed. Have a great rest of your night.
Yeah.
Have a good night's sleep. And we'll see you hopefully tomorrow during the hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if not, next time. Oh, Marietta gifting a membership
Marietta
too.
Coming through.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you so much. And welcome, Thought Rioters.
Yes, welcome new members. On July 23rd, 2009, at approximately 6:42 p.m., a male caller used the Bartholomew phone to contact her family. The Bartholomew phone was located in New York City at the time, specifically attached to a cellular tower located at 275 West 39th Street, which is approximately 872 feet or 0.16 miles from Heuermann's then office space. On July 23rd, 2009, between approximately 8:29 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., the burner cell phone had activity in New York City. Later on the same date, at approximately 11:05 p.m., billing records indicate Heuermann's cell phone listed a call located in Jamaica, Queens. On August 5th, 2009, between approximately 6:50 p.m. and 7:11 p.m., a male caller used the Bartholomew phone to contact Miss Bartholomew's family. During said time period, the Bartholomew phone utilized the following cellular phone towers in New York City, which are 2230 to 3280 feet from Heuermann's then office space. On this same date, during a similar time frame, between approximately 6:46 p.m. and 7:05 p.m., Heuermann's cell phone listed billing locations in New York City. Again, bam.
Yep. So you guys, I'm going to end this poll now about the strongest, evidence against Bryan Kohberger, and going to switch it now to the strongest evidence that could exonerate him.
I'm excited to see it.
So the results for the inculpatory evidence, meaning the strongest evidence against him, what's going to stick in the mind of the jurors? 34% was the highest, and that was DNA. The next was surveillance footage at 25%, cell/GPS tracking at 22%, and the last was eyewitness testimony at 17%.
All right.
So I'm going to cast this poll. Keep an eye out.
But isn't this data interesting? The reliability, the repeatability we're seeing here?
It is.
On August 10th, 2009, based upon subpoena travel documents, Heuermann departed for Iceland and all phone activity for Bartholomew phones stopped. On August 18th, 2009, Heuermann returned from Iceland and phone activity for the Bartholomew phone resumed the next day. And we have another one with the victim's phone in the vicinity of Heuermann's then office space. This gives you the location, and this gives you the rough distance. So again, on 8/19/2009 at 7:23 p.m., outgoing call to number, duration 1.58 minutes or 1 minute and 35 seconds on the Manhattan switch, 249 West 36th Street, New York, New York. Yeah. And then what are you doing for exonerate?
All the same.
Oh. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I'm curious what it said real quick here. So what do you believe the strongest inculpatory evidence in the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case will be? So DNA 34, surveillance footage 25%, cell and GPS tracking 22%, eyewitness testimony 17%. All right. And just a reminder, you guys, as we're putting this next one out, hit that thumbs up button, hit those 3 stars, hit those 5 stars, leave us a rating, leave us a comment under the video. Engagement is good. It helps the show out. It helps us get out there and get seen more and more frequently, even though some are working against that. So just keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are awesome, and we appreciate everything you do. Share it with family, friends, and everyone in between. Because grassroots marketing is the best marketing. Okay, so.
All right, the poll is up. What do you think could exonerate Bryan Kohberger?
Okay. on August 26, 2009, 11:28 p.m., we have another one here from Heuermann's office space. And here's an interesting thing as we briefly go through this, okay? Each one of these reports that they are putting out there, okay? Each one of them is an opportunity for that science and information to be wrong. So the fact that it's not, in my opinion, is interesting in itself. You know?
Yeah, it is.
All right. So additional burner phones and online account activity linked to defendant Heuermann. As described herein, over the course of the comprehensive investigation of the defendant Heuermann, investigators located a number of online accounts and burner cell phones linked to defendant Heuermann, but which were held by him in fictitious names and used for illicit activities. American Express records obtained subpoena revealed recurring Google Pay payments made by Heuermann to Tinder to find dates or hookups. Records were obtained from Tinder that gives cell phone burner number and a fictitious name of Andrew Roberts with an email account, Springfieldman.
What?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
John Springfield, Astoria, Queens, with burner cell phone number.
So Tinder.
Yeah, I don't want to show those search results. Anyways, so that is the evidence.
Okay, so he had email accounts. He had accounts on these burner phones that they tracked him through too.
Yes.
Well, that's not very smart.
Like for him? Yeah, I know. It's not.
You don't want to have any
not.
applications on a burner phone.
Yeah.
No applications.
Yep. I know it. I agree. If you're going to do it, I mean, you might as well do it smart or whatever, you know?
Well, I'm glad he was dumb. I'm glad he got caught. I mean, because it was really the police, really dropping the ball in this case for so long that got so many women killed because they weren't investigating properly.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm glad that finally it was paid attention to and finally he was caught. And yeah, this evidence is very strong. It just makes me wonder, had they paid attention sooner and got cell phone data sooner, like how much faster could he have been caught?
Yeah. Yep. I'm right there with you. I don't know. I just know that this is very interesting evidence and details. And I think this helps prove the reliability around this evidence. I really do. You know?
It's not being used in the same way as it is in the Kohberger case, though. Do you believe?
Yes. It's the same science. It's the same kind of location services they're going to be using. Yep.
I mean, that's what Payne will be using. Yes. He will.
I think that's what
it's going to literally be this, probably like CDR putting him in a general area, one cell tower that he's pinging off of and putting him in one area.
Yeah.
And then moving to another sector and moving to another sector from another. So that doesn't seem very reliable. And in Heuermann's case, it's reliable because his personal phone and his burner had the same information. That's not going to work for Kohberger unless he had a second device there. And it would have to be within a range that put him at the crime scene, which we don't believe they have. I mean, they claim he wasn't connected to any towers during the crime.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be used in the same way.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's the same science.
Yeah, it's the same science, but it will not be used in the same way. comparing burner phone to personal phone.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I just don't understand saying it like that, because it is the same exact science. One is just saying, here is our evidence using RTT time to prove he was in this location and to prove that he is the owner and was around this phone. The other one is just saying, here's the RTT time to prove Bryan Kohberger constantly and repetitively stalked these individuals. It's the same science.
I don't understand what you're arguing right now.
You're saying that it's used differently.
Okay, but if
every case is different, so that's an obvious given, but it's the same science. It's not even arguable.
I mean, yeah, I think it is the same science, and it's going to be the CDR one cell tower whole thing, and I don't think that's reliable.
It is.
It's only reliable in the Heuermann case because they have two.
No, it's reliable.
Phones.
It's reliable. It's not precise. There's a difference. It is reliable. It's just not precise with one tower.
So it can put him in that general direction reliably, but not in a precise location.
Correct. Absolutely.
So we can know if he was west of the tower or east of the tower.
Correct.
But not in a specific spot.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
So interesting, you guys. This was definitely a good one, and I hope you guys learned a lot. Do you want to close that out, even though we only got a few votes? That's okay.
We'll close it out here in a second as we're, saying our departing words, and I'll just read it off at the very end. You guys quickly get your votes in if you haven't yet, because there's not that many votes. What evidence do you think could exonerate Bryan Kohberger? The poll is up in the chat right now. You have a couple minutes to get your vote in. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting how they caught Rex Heuermann. I think it's really fascinating. And I think that's important, what you just said. And I don't think we've pushed on that enough, that reliable doesn't mean precise, and precise doesn't mean reliable. Because that's the issue, I think, with GPS, is that it's precise, but it's not reliable, which is confusing for me. I don't even understand what that means, if I'm being honest with GPS.
Yeah.
That's confusing.
We'll have to go into more of the science. I hear you.
But I understand what it means with the cell towers because we just talked about it. But with the GPS, it's more confusing for me.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look more into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm about to close it.
Close it out.
All right. All right, so the results. What evidence do you believe could exonerate Bryan Kohberger? 50% said cell/GPS tracking. 20% said eyewitness testimony, meaning possibly Bethany, because we know the defense has said they believe Bethany has exculpatory information. DNA evidence is 18%, and surveillance footage is 10%.
Okay. Interesting.
It is interesting because I'm questioning, would cell/GPS tracking have been the highest if it weren't for the recent alibi? I think the recent alibi with Cy-Ray, as the defense expert, has quite a few people confident that Cy-Ray will have something that exonerates Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We will.
I'm really curious what information Bethany has too, though.
I agree. I am very curious.
I'm wondering if surveillance footage won't cast a lot of doubt. Like the surveillance footage is either going to be really hard to get past, or it's going to cast a lot of doubt because it's not going to be good. It's not going to show anything defining, anything that could identifying. But yes, it was a great show. Thank you all for being here tonight. And everyone who, supported the show. Leave a comment, leave a like after the show, leave us a rating on any of the podcast platforms. Come hang out with us on social media. We're on all of the major social medias, Twitter,
Yes.
or X, Facebook, Instagram, all of them.
Yes, indeed.
We're on TikTok too, but TikTok may not be around much longer. So, and we don't post to TikTok that often, but
yes.
I don't know. It's with it possibly going away. It's like, what even is the point anymore?
Yeah. Yep, I'm right there with you. All right, you guys, we appreciate you. You guys are awesome. And thank you for being you, and continue bringing that evidence and continue sharing Thought Riot Podcast, because you are helping us more than you know with the constant manipulation with like our views and stuff like that. So it is truly all on you guys to help continue and support the channel. So just keep doing that. And I don't believe we should ever let anyone control what people see. So you guys helping are doing incredible work. Thank you.
Yes. Have a great night, everyone.
See you on the next one.
Later.